target. And the key word here I should have underlined, I guess, is accurately. We've all been in a test situation where you felt like you were a victim of the gotcha game, where you may have had a general idea of what you were supposed to know and do, but you showed up and you took the test and you walked out of there thinking, my gosh, there was 15 questions on there we never even covered in class that weren't in the chapter. We've been a victim of that gotcha game. The purpose of what we're doing is to eliminate the games altogether so that we can be very clear. This is the learning, this is what we're going to do to prep you for the learning, and then this is how we're going to accurately assess whether or not you got that learning. All right? And then the fourth point, we will use formative assessments during the learning. We will use benchmark assessments after the learning too, so that we're guiding students throughout the entire process. We want them to be able to self-assess, and we want the teachers to be able to help them assess along the way, so that before I get to that benchmark assessment, I should be reasonably confident about how I'm going to perform on that assessment, because I understand the learning targets and I've had activities and guides along the way that are connected to that. Again, I'm going to admit to you very clearly, this is not happening right now consistently across this building, across the middle school, and I would look to Amanda, but probably not across all of our elementary buildings either. We recognize that. That's why we're trying to come up with a uniform policy that we can put into place so that we can hold folks accountable to say this needs to happen, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen now because we owe it to the kids who are in the seats now. Are all assessments tests? This is another question I get a lot. I addressed it a little bit earlier, but no, they're not. Students learn differently and we must assess differently. Assessments can be essays, speeches, discussions, projects, presentations, documentaries, visuals, etc. We can figure out what a student knows and can do in many different ways, and we owe it to them to do that. We all know students, we may be those students ourselves, that are not good test takers. We ought to be able to assess in a different way. Again, I know it's not happening now, but it needs to happen. I'm going to stop for a second. We have a student with us, Kayla, and I'll let her introduce herself. She's got to run, but she asked if she could say a few words, so I don't really know what she's going to say, but it's all hers.
Hello, my name is Kayla Morse. I'm a senior at Kettle, Moraine, obviously. I guess I just wanted to say something tonight. I have a lot of the same questions as you guys, and just to give you a perspective of going through this, it's really hard to be in the middle of all these changes, but we're all trying to, deal with it and do the best that we can. And some of the questions that I thought I might be able to address are ones concerning college applications. I just went through that process, and for me, I don't believe the assessment for learning or next year will affect your students or how colleges look at your kids' grades, because colleges actually do research how your high school grades students, and they will know that we assess students on the assessment for learning basis, so they'll take that into consideration while looking at your child's GPA. And as well, I wanted to address the worry about not having, if you thought that your student would have a very good class rank and you wanted colleges to know that, and now you just feel like they're going to get lost in the mix of students who all have 5s or who all have A's, and that there won't be a way to differentiate. I just wanted to say that most colleges really, they don't care almost at all about class rank anymore. It's kind of fallen by the wayside. If the only people it still applies to is maybe valedictorian and salutatorian. So as far as weighted grades, when that's gotten rid of, I don't think that will affect colleges at all. I know I researched on college websites a lot, and some colleges don't even list it as a factor anymore, and if they did, it was listed as one of the minor factors. It was never listed. I never saw it listed on any of the colleges that I looked at as a major factor, so I guess I wouldn't be worried about getting rid of the weighted system. And like Mr. Hay said, it really just is a way of inflating GPAs, and colleges convert everything back to the 4.0 scale, so it means nothing to them. It's just basically less work for them. Another thing that I wanted to address is he was talking a lot about on the 100-point scale that it's a game, and I agree with him that it really was a game to try to get more points. When I wanted a better grade, I would go back to teachers, and Mrs. Braille's been the subject of this many times. I would end up with a 98.45 in her class. I'm like, Mrs. Braille, how can I get that A+? How can you give me one more point? I need one more point. She would never give it to me, and it was all about getting that 1 point. It was never about, like, why didn't I learn that better? I mean, obviously I probably mastered it enough, but she knows me. I wanted that extra point. But I never asked a teacher, how could I learn more? It was always, how can I get the extra point? And just looking back through my high school years, I think it would have been a lot better if I had been able to ask the question, how can I learn more? And taking the game out of it. And I also just wanted to say that I'm coming at this like a critical eye with you, and understand that the changes are, I don't know if you're worried about your students not being held to the same level of standard, but I really believe that for the students who are getting the A+ and A's right now, it'd be just as hard for them to get that. They'll be held to the same level of high standards, and it'll be just as good of an education, but better because they'll be learning more. And I'm still skeptical of a few things. Sometimes I think it's a little idealistic that all the teachers are going to be able to get on board with the reassessment, because right now teachers reassess in completely different ways. They don't have a format set up for how they reassess. For example, in my AP biology class, I mean, students are taking reassessments from months ago just to try to like give their grade an extra boost, and I don't really think they're learning a lot. But this is why it'll be good to have it uniform across the board next year, because all teachers will be able to reassess on this pretty much the same format, at least within the departments. So being that all students will be subject to the same form of reassessment, and it'll just make it a lot easier. So I think the reassessment will work a lot more smoothly when they make this across the board. So if you're kind of skeptical of reassessment right now and just the process of it, don't get too skeptical of it yet, because I think it'll be a lot smoother next year. And I guess the other thing is, like, will a teacher really have time to devote it to every student to reassess? But I guess my answer to that is the students right now who study for the test and get the good grade in the first place probably won't need to reassess, so that won't change. But right now, I guess it just gives students the opportunity to learn more. And right now there is no opportunity. Basically, it's like, I think the viewpoint right now is you didn't study for the test, you weren't responsible, and therefore you get the bad grade and it was your fault. And I think we should move away from that and move towards actually giving the students an opportunity to learn. But I guess one more question that you guys might have is, in the real world, you don't have the opportunity to reassess, so how is this really preparing my kids for the real world? And I guess that's one thing that I'm still concerned about as well, and I don't know if Mr. Hay wants to try to answer that, but...
We'll get to that
okay.
later on in the slides. Two follow-ups for you, Kayla. And Kayla was at the student forum 2 days ago, so